All right, welcome everybody back to the Fork in the Road. I am your host, Paul Pastora, and this is the second episode of the Fork in the Road. And I don't think I'm going to go as long as the first one. That was not intended, let's say. But there's some really important things that we need to talk about. And I'll start off with this. I'm wearing a specific shirt today, and it's got a message on it, right? Cutesy time is over. Cutesy time's over. So I said specifically in the first episode what the goal of this show is, and that does remain. I definitely want to get to that, which is we want to get to where we're presenting facts and the news, and we want to show you what the left is saying and what the right is saying. Again, Fork in the Road is all about when society and life presents to you two options and two paths, forge ahead and create your own path. I did think it was great that I heard Elon Musk. I really need to cut that, but I'll do that later. But the Elon Musk in the video or in the audio, the space with Donald Trump interview a few days ago, he did say that America's at a fork in the road, and it is. So I'm happy that he sees what I'm seeing as well. So I must be on the right track with something in regards to that. But what I need to say today is this. Cutesy time's over, folks. It just is. I want to remain as neutral as possible. Why? Because there's a lot of things even within the Republican Party that need to be fixed. By no means is the Republican Party where it needs to be or is going to fix all your problems or anything like that. The less politics and less politicians that we have involved in our lives, the better. So there's a lot of filtering that still needs to be done within that party. And that filtering does come with the help of some points made by Democrats or independents, everybody who's involved with the process. I wanted to remain non-biased and not let my bias come out on this show, but I just realized after the last couple days, I've had some interactions on Twitter where I realized, you know what? This is just too important of an election that's coming up in November. And you got to understand, there are only two options here. For the record, I absolutely hate the fact that we don't have more than two parties that are legitimate options for presidency. There's only two candidates, and we really have a limited amount of ability to choose who those are. To be fair, was Donald Trump my first choice? Absolutely not. I thought we needed to go younger. There are people who think similarly to him. If I had my choice, since I lean libertarian, I would have to say Vivek would have been my choice to lead the Republican Party. He didn't get there, and you know what? He's fully on board, and Donald Trump is taking advice from Vivek, so that gives me hope. I mean, it's not just Vivek, obviously, but I just thought Vivek is a wonderful communicator and younger, and he would have been great for really getting our message. He does a great job. I'm actually in awe of his ability of being able to talk to the people on the left, and it's a civil discussion that's more productive. He's a master of understanding what they're saying and getting them to see the truth. So I definitely have nothing but praise for Vivek Ramaswamy, but he's not the guy, right? The guy is either Donald Trump or Kamala Harris. And once again, we find ourselves where just because you say you vote for him, that's why I don't get mad when people tell me I'm voting for Kamala. Okay, I'm not going to judge you just on you telling me I'm voting for Kamala. You have your reasons. There must be some sort of issue that you're very passionate about, and you say, I'm just passionate about this, and Donald Trump's not about that, so I'm going to vote for Kamala. I can understand that, where people are coming from when they do that. I don't agree with it. I think that a lot of you are not seeing the existential threat that exists in our country. And these are words that everybody says. This is the most important election of our lives. The existential threats to democracy, all of these are big catchwords that everybody uses. You hear them everywhere. But I do need to say that as much as I wanted to stay biased, I will go to the original intent of this show after the election. We have less than 90 days before a major election. I'm not going to go around and be like, it's the most important of our lifetime, because in 4 years, that's going to be the most important of our lifetime. But we have a presidential election coming up. Each one of these is an Olympics. Each one of these is a Super Bowl. Only they have ramifications that are going to affect us for the 4 years that are coming up. The Olympics are over. People watched the Olympics. Some people got extremely upset and offended by the opening ceremony. Some people just enjoyed the athletes and everything that they brought and were able to put all politics aside and forget that the French were just throwing all this stuff in our faces, and maybe not the most family friendly material. I gotta say, I was just happy my kids weren't paying attention. I mean, when you have two men and a woman going into a room suggesting they're about to have a threesome, and then they close the door, and I heard the international feed was like, ooh la la. And I think the American feed was like, oh, we're not invited in there. That's not stuff that's like, that's not for the kids, man. Like, it's cool. We're all adults. I can see that, and I could be like, it's the French. Right. But for kids to see that, like, we're not supposed to be, where did we get away from in our society where we no longer hide promiscuity? We no longer hide, this type of behavior from our children, right? Because one thing is, look, I grew up, I ate McDonald's, I ate genetically modified foods. I did all this stuff, right? My parents didn't really know any better in terms of some of the foods that were given to me as a kid and things like that. But now I know. So I got to protect my kids from, maybe let's not eat McDonald's. Let's not eat fast food. In fact, let's stop eating food that's not naturally made, that kind of stuff, because it's leading to all these diseases and all these sicknesses that we have in our country. There's like a direct link between the food supply that we have in the United States and why we're the only country that's dealing with the amount of illnesses that we have. I mean, it fuels our healthcare system. Hey, if you're a pharmaceutical company, good business there, because if everybody's sick, making that money, right? So, that's why we want better for our children. And that's where we get upset. Like a lot of the stuff that gets misinterpreted. For example, let's talk a little bit like LGBTQ stuff, right? And there's a lot of letters there. It used to just be LGB, then it became LGBT, then it became LGBTQ, then there was an I and an A, and then they just put a plus sign. It gets a little ridiculous at some point, you know what I mean? Talking against the LGBTQ political group is not the same thing as being against homosexuals or transgenders or anything like that. The thing about that subject is that, look, as an adult, you have all the rights as anybody else. No one is taking away your right as an adult to do what you want to do to yourself. This is a free country. Now, one thing though is, as a heterosexual male, we don't go around talking about our sex lives, right? Like, we don't go around doing sexual acts with our wives and our girlfriends in public and stuff like that. So it's always been that way. There's always been, in fact, I remember growing up in the 80s, it was a bigger deal. And I think South Park, the movie, talked a lot about this, where, it was, you can show deplorable violence, like Terminator and people getting destroyed in all kinds of different ways, as long as no one's using any naughty language, right? Well, it's the same thing. Sex was always something that we wanted to keep away from the children. We didn't want the kids to see, you don't want them to see nudity. You don't want them to see sex scenes. Your parents would close your eyes or look away or, leave the room, or this movie's just not for you, because, these are themes that they don't even know. They're so young. Children don't think sexually. They don't. You hear people say that, and it is mind-boggling. As a human who's raising, right now I have a 12 and a 9-year-old, I can assure you, I'm very close to both of them, and I've never seen anything that would suggest that they think anything. They don't even know what that is until the proper age. You know what I mean? So, and everyone has the right to do that on their own, in their own households. And if you want to have your kids know a little bit more at a younger age, hey, that's up to you. This is a free country. What you do in your home, I'm not anyone to tell you what to do or not do. That's not the case. What I'm saying is the same thing goes for a lot of this material, right? Because the political group that exists between LGBT, well, what you're bragging about is your sexual preference. You're talking about a subject that revolves around that, not a conversation to have around children. That's the main point that adults are making. So that doesn't make you homophobic or transphobic or any of that. It just makes you a responsible adult and a responsible parent. I don't want my kids hearing that. Hey, you want to say that around me? All day, I can take it, I can filter it, not a problem. Whether I agree with it or not, I respect your right in a free country to do what makes you happy. But what you cannot do is start saying that you have to teach my children or anyone else's children about anything related to this, because this isn't a civil rights issue, right? When we went through the civil rights in the 60s, People are born black, and it's very visible, right? You're seeing from a young age a mistreatment of a certain population because of the way that they look. That has nothing to do with you being treated a certain way because of a sexual preference. It's just two completely different things. They do not compare. That's why kids need to be told at a young age. Well, they don't even need to be told, because honestly, racism is taught. Kids don't think that way unless they're taught to think that way. Kids are born naturally loving. You encourage that spirit. You encourage that attitude, because that's natural. That they want to accept people. They want to be happy. Hatred, intolerance, racism, bigotry is all taught. So if they learn that, you have to correct it. You have to explain to them, look, we have to be tolerant of the way other people look. You should not treat someone less equal or treat someone less because they were born, with a darker shade of skin or a lighter shade of skin or any of that stuff, right? So there's a huge significant difference that has to be identified and has to be properly communicated, that whenever you hear conservatives, whenever you hear someone like myself who says we can't promote an LGBTQ agenda, it comes from that. It has nothing to do with taking away your rights as an individual or saying that you can't live your life that way. In fact, we are the United States. One of the funniest and absolutely weirdest things that you can see are people with the sign Queers for Palestine. I hope those people understand, if you were in Palestine, the people that you were talking about will hang you from a bridge and kill you because of your sexual preference. That's who you're standing up for. And I'm not going to get into Israel and Palestine because that is a complicated mess that's been going on a long time. I'm an American isolationist. I try to stay out of that. I don't think we should be funding Israel's wars, or anyone's for that matter. The reason is we have so many problems here in the United States. Our infrastructure is terrible. And you say infrastructure, and I've heard liberals where they come out and they say, well, we passed the infrastructure bill. My response to that was, well, just because we passed the Patriot Act, there was nothing patriotic about it. In fact, it took away freedoms and liberties from you and me. The politicians that will name bills to try to trick you, and their goal is to take freedoms from you, especially when you're scared. And that was the whole experiment they did during COVID. They wanted to see how much and how many of people's rights can they trample in order to achieve what they wanted to. And my only question to some of you who are listening to this, they lied to you about COVID. They lied to you about January 6th. They lied to you about Iraq. They've lied to you about every major event that has happened in your lifetime. More facts came out after where you understood, wait a minute, that's not what they told me. They've hidden information from you. The media is directly under. They have to check, can we talk about this? Is this a problem? And the powers that be that control them will tell them, we don't want you talking about this, we want you talking about that, in order to manipulate you, in order to manipulate us. I disconnected from this matrix a while ago. It's a popular line that's used because the movie's right. This is some sort of matrix that they try to keep you trapped in, where you're just believing the narratives that are coming out. They told you that getting the vaccine will stop the spread of COVID. Rachel Maddow, and she has no shame in her game. Never did she apologize for saying, you know what, I probably should have used my words more selectively, more carefully. I should have said, we're not sure about this, but they think that it'll stop the spread. No, do you think they went back? No, she's getting paid like $30 million a year. She doesn't care what you think, all right? She hates you. I always like that. All politicians and all these people in the media and all these mainstream journalists, they hate your guts. They hate you. Plain and simple. They want to keep the power, and they will tell you what you need to hear to keep that power. So try to remember that and filter that whenever you're watching the news, whenever you're watching anything. These people are trying to keep power in their hands. If you and I are fighting over emotional subjects like racism, like abortion, you know what we're not talking about? We're not talking about redistributing the taxes that are collected in order to focus on infrastructure and improve the cities in America. Do you know how many neighborhoods there are in every city in America that are falling apart? This is the United States of America. We're supposed to be the wealthiest country in the world. But where does all of our money go? Our money goes to other countries. We literally, if you go look, and I'll bring up these facts later, but you can look it up. Just don't take my word for it. Fact check me. Go check. The Pentagon just admitted a little while ago that we have money that has been accidentally going to the Taliban in the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars. Does that not upset you? Does that not upset you that the Pentagon and the Defense Department's never been audited? We don't know where that money goes. We lost billions of dollars. We have no accountability for where it went. In other words, that money went into corrupt hands in other countries so that we have actors and people who can bend to our will to help us get control in their country. That's what Ukraine is all about. Ukraine has been a giant money laundering scheme for a long time. And, it's getting bad where when we try to have these discussions, you have to stop. And then like right there, when I mentioned Ukraine, I have to say now, full disclosure, I'm not supporting Vladimir Putin. I'm not, just because you bring up something doesn't make you a Putin lover. If I defend Donald Trump, it doesn't make me a Trump lover. If I defend Kamala Harris on a single issue, it doesn't mean I like Kamala Harris. It just means there's one issue where she happened to get it right, which I can't think of one off the top of my head right now, but you get what I'm trying to say. And we have to stop overreacting to things where, wait, did he just say that? Oh, this guy's just a crazy, I'm just going to dismiss their entire opinion because they said one thing that I disagree with. And that's where we're getting to in our country. We are not focusing on having discussions with each other of why do you think the way you think, right? Why is it that I want to know, okay, so you think different than me. Tell me why. And if you give me a solid explanation as to why you think the way you do and is different than what I was thinking, guess what? Now I might say, you know what? You make a great point. I think I'm going to change my opinion about that, right? This happened. I actually voted for Barack Obama, I believe in 2008, the one against Mitt Romney, right? I looked at Mitt Romney. This guy's like a spineless coward. I'm like, dude, this guy has no backbone. He exhibits weakness, okay? When you look at Mitt Romney, all I ever think of, this is a weak man. When I looked at Obama, I saw a strong man, all right? I didn't realize his ability, his level of lying was so good. I mean, the guy's a snake charmer. When he talked, we all were like, wow, what an oration, what a speech. The guy's an amazing speech giver. You cannot take that away from him no matter what side of the aisle you're on. The man gives incredible speeches where you want to believe what he says. And you know what? I'm Hispanic. My family's from Nicaragua. And he said he was going to fix the immigration system. I believed him. And I said, well, both guys are bad. Mitt Romney's not good. Barack Obama does a lot of things I don't agree with. I understand there's a lot of dangers with universal health care because I know how bad that is in a lot of other countries. I get the good intention of it. We want to take care of our citizens. We need to improve and lower the cost of healthcare by all means. But everything government touches, and since I know that everything government touches never gets better, never gets cheaper. Show me the one thing government touched and that got cheaper or better. I mean, we put more money into our public schools than any other country, and we're not ranked first. So we're not getting our return of investment of having an educated next generation. And with what we did in COVID, with lockdowns and mandates, we set them back even further. So my point is that with Obama, I believed him. Immigration, he's gonna fix it. All right, you know what? It'll be worth a presidency I disagree with a lot with, if he can fix the immigration system, because USCIS, which is the agency that deals with immigration, is heavily flawed and extremely slow. So the problem with that is we had, before Joe Biden, there was about 8 to 11 million undocumented immigrants that were in our country. Some of these people have been here for a long time. I know some people that are in that category, and they've gone through where they made the applications, they paid all the fees, and they're trying to get whatever legal status they can because they don't want to live like that. So they understand that they crossed the border in a way and they overstayed their welcome, and they're trying to pay the fines and the fees that are associated with that. But there are people who've been waiting in line for 12, 13 years, if not longer, and they're still waiting. Meanwhile, when Joe Biden gets into office, he basically announced between the months of, and I'm going to do a video on immigration. Look out for this video because it's going to be very detailed. and I'm going to go look for it, where Joe Biden basically made the announcement after he won the election that he was going to he was going to change all the Trump policies at the border. And what that meant was the border is going to be open. If they come in, they're not going to be penalized the same. They're not going to be deported. They're not going to be any of that stuff. They're going to be allowed in. In fact, they took it many steps further, and now we have evidence of they literally fly people in from other countries, and they can fill out the paperwork on an app on their phone. They're handled in a different way. I just had family that traveled internationally to Nicaragua. There's a whole separate line in the international travel terminals for this category of people that are coming in so that they can process them. So they know that people are coming to the country without permission, and they're doing it on purpose. And I can tell you with firsthand knowledge, Nicaragua is sending people over here. Now they're sending, some of those people are good people, right? Some of those people are legit looking for political asylum because there is political oppression in that country. But mixed in with those people, their president was anything but their dictator, I should say, is basically sending over former murderers, people who have known to be murderers in the country, violent criminals. They're getting him out of their country. This is the kind of point that Donald Trump has been trying to make. He's not the best communicator by far. I get what he's trying to say, not the best. That's why I wanted Vivek, because I felt like Vivek has the same message, but he knows how to say it properly, and therefore it's a little clearer on what it is he's trying to say. Then you don't have people saying, well, why is Donald Trump calling all Hispanics murderers and rapists and this and that? It's like, dude, the people that are being sent over here, there are people from Venezuela. They will send in good people who are looking for political asylum. There'll be like 80 of them on a plane. And then the other 120 are all people who hate our guts, and they are now in here. And then I hear liberal talking points about, well, if you look at the crime rates, you know, the undocumented immigrants or illegal immigrants, they have a very low crime rate because they're scared of committing crimes and getting caught. I've heard this argument, and there is a lot of truth to that. But we have sleeper cells in our country. If you can't foresee that, we have more people that have gotten into the country that are literally on the terrorist watch list. In other words, they were on the terrorist watch list. Our government saw that and released them into our country anyway. This is happening. This is not an exaggeration. So now people who are known to be on the terrorist watch list, who are suspicious of doing acts of terror, have been allowed into our country. So that's why I put the shirt on. I had to do it. This is Dan Bongino. He's a big time conservative. I follow a lot what he says because he does bring a lot of facts. What I appreciate about Dan is that when he tells you something, he backs it up with receipts, and I respect that. We're not at a point anymore where, until this election happens, I can't speak from a center perspective until then, because this is too important. We have to, there's only two choices, folks. There's only two. So it's either, are you going to support the people who are leaving our border completely wide open? By the way, I don't think a lot of people understand how dangerous that is. If there was 330 million people in our country, just do the math. We already had 8 to 11 million people that don't have the proper documentation. We have a suspected 10 to 20 million people that have entered our country now on top of what we already have. That means we have anywhere between 20 and 30 million. Some experts think it's even higher than that, undocumented folks in our country. That is 10% of the population. That is more of a population than many of the states in our country. So you are now changing the entire demographics of our nation. But here's the thing. The reason why that's a problem, when you go through the immigration process legally, you have to pass certain tests. You have to know what the Constitution is. You have to have a basic understanding of the three branches of government: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. You have to know these things, and you have to show that you know these things, and then you can become a citizen. I've gone through the citizenship process with family that came from Nicaragua, so I know exactly what it is that they have to go through. All that is skipped. So if you just come into this country, you just have the street version of what you think this country stands for, right? And you're being told, well, all right, so think about this. I'm the guy who's opening the door. And I say, look, come on in. Just remember who opened the door for you, right? Just remember who opened the door for you, and remember that so that you can vote for us whenever you get a chance to. So I'm going to share something with you that was, look it up for yourself. Dan Bongino shared this, I believe it was today. I'm going to share it with you here real quick. Check this out. Immigrants are becoming U.S. citizens at the fastest clip in years. So the government has reduced a backlog of applications that built up during the Trump administration. New citizens say they are looking forward to voting in November. Okay, so that's under 5 months and all this. Now look, on one side, we need the immigration process to go faster. There is a backlog. That is true, right? So it's not like the Democrats are just blatantly doing it in the most obvious way. There's clearly a backlog, but let me tell you something. I don't understand how 3.3 million people have become citizens during President Biden's time in office. I know people that have literally been on the waiting list for 12, 13, I think even 14 years now. How come they weren't processed? So who is it that they're processing? You see what I mean? So basically you mean to tell me by opening the border, you allow other people to come in and now they just jumped right to the front of the line. Maybe not all of them, but definitely some of them. And that's just not right. So this goes back to what I said. When Barack Obama said he was going to fix immigration, some of us believed it. Hispanics came out in droves. They voted for Barack Obama at probably one of the highest levels that a Democrat president has ever received, the Latino vote. What did he do? He deported more people than anyone. He deported, I believe it was 6 million people total. And what he didn't do was fix USCIS, which needs to be fixed. The problem is that we can't fix USCIS if our border is wide open. So that's why immigration was at an all-time low when Trump left office. Biden takes over. He says he inherited this problem. No, you didn't. It was at an all-time low. And you went ahead and just opened it. The reason why, and I covered this on a little bit at the end of the last video, that you can see the graph there where because of COVID, we literally got to a point where we didn't let anybody in because you could suspiciously be sick, and therefore there were laws that were there to protect us from allowing more people into the country that Trump used to do. And all that was lifted. You can see the videos of Alejandro Mayorkas and Joe Biden where they brag about anything that was associated as a Trump policy at the border, we completely removed. And therefore, everyone found out. That's why there were videos of the caravans that started in December so that they could be here by January when Joe Biden was sworn into office. It was literally like that. I have a good memory on this. I remember it as it happened and I haven't forgotten. You'd be surprised how many people forget this. But that is the way they did this. Joe Biden made an announcement. He made a public speech that when I'm in office, I'm going to take away all of the restrictions that Donald Trump did at the border, right? Well, what do you think that is? That's an invitation. That's like announcing it. By the way, when I'm in office, the border's going to be wide open. Psh. I mean, so how do they defend themselves? You hear them say, oh, the border is secure. The border is secure. They asked, so that one of the other popular Democrat talking points was that, well, why did the Republicans vote down the border bill? Because in the terminology of that bill, they wanted to increase the amount of Border Patrol agents to process people faster. It wasn't to secure the border. There's a huge difference between we want to make sure that we're doing the asylum process quicker and handling it. They literally have border agents making sandwiches. They even sent Secret Service agents down there to help them make sandwiches for the people crossing the border. This is insanity. So just on one issue, if there's one issue that you're going to vote on, it has to be this one. Why? Because if you don't have a border, you don't have a country, okay? America is the beacon of freedom and hope in the world. We are the only country on this planet designed the way we are, all right? Now, there are smaller countries that get to live under our umbrella and protection. I'm looking at you, Costa Rica, because Costa Rica, you never hear anything bad about. A lot of good things happen there. I know people who live there. Costa Rica's peaceful. They don't need a military because they know the United States won't allow anything to happen to them. It's a very popular retirement place. So there are other places where freedom seems to be flourishing, right? But it's all under the umbrella of the United States remaining a free country. If the wrong hands take over this country, it's over. It's over for the world. And you hear this from people. Like if you watch Russell Brand and the stuff that he says on YouTube and on Rumble, he basically says, like, you know, America is the last bastion of freedom left in this world. And it is. We don't have a monarchy here. We have a genius system of government that was created by the forefathers, where if it's run the way it's supposed to be run, works very well. There is no foolproof way, right? You can make lots of arguments. If there's a king, if you have a good king under monarchies, the country will flourish. But what happens when the king dies and his spoiled son takes over, who doesn't know any better, who wasn't as intelligent? You know, look at look at Marcus Aurelius and how he was the last great emperor of Rome, and then look at the people that came after him. All right, you have one great man, leads to prosperity, but then you leave yourself vulnerable to garbage. So, you know, we've had nothing but flawed politicians at the top. Obama was flawed, George Bush was flawed. Anyone in my lifetime had some flaws to them, you know, but there are people who did some good. There were good things that Ronald Reagan did. There's a few good things that Bill Clinton did. The reason is because Bill Clinton actually respected being more in the middle. His policies, therefore, it led to prosperity in our country. He was able to piggyback off of Ronald Reagan, who basically put us in the right direction. Bill Clinton kept that going. I remember my parents were like, hey, the Clinton era made a lot of money. Economy was booming. Why? Because Bill acknowledged that you needed to be more center. The more you go off to the left, though, the closer you're getting to socialism, communism, and it's dangerous territory. Take the warning from people like me. I am the son of immigrants who literally escaped socialism in Nicaragua to give me a better life in the United States. That's why I have to say, I put some deep thought into this video. I put some deep thought into where I am right now. And I just can't keep neutral at the moment. I desire neutrality. I desire unity. We need the country to come together. And let me tell you, I want the Democrat Party to fix itself, because a better, healthier, smarter Democrat Party makes America better. But you are not heading in the right direction. That's the problem here. I don't get the Bill Maher's and Stephen A. Smiths of the world, because they call out a lot of the hypocrisies. That's why they are useful, because you'll hear Bill Maher say, well, we can't go fully woke. We can't go fully left. We can't do all this. But then he's like, but no matter what, I can't vote for Trump, right? I don't understand it. How is it that you're just going to pledge your vote to the people you're complaining about doing a terrible job? That doesn't make any sense, because you're telling them we have to change this. We have to change this. They just laugh. Don't change it. Still got your vote. Stephen A. Smith, I saw his podcast the other day. He talks about, he brings up all the fair points that conservatives are making about Kamala Harris. He says, you need to come out in public. You have to do some interviews. It seems like you flip-flopped on some of your positions. We'd like to know why you did that. And he even admits that these are fair criticisms from conservatives. That Kamala should explain herself, because she's trying to be the leader of the country. That's not the leader of just the Democrats. That's the leader of all Americans. You have an obligation and a duty, if you're going to run for president, to be in front of a camera, to speak to the American public, and not in a scripted format, to explain to us your views so that we can decide whether we should vote for you or not. Instead, and I'm not saying this is stupid, this might be the smartest tactic she has. Maybe that's why she's doing it. What I'm hoping is that my fellow Americans aren't falling for this. When Joe Biden was running for office, his cognitive decline was pretty apparent even when he was running before he became president. Joe Biden was, you know, they played it off as, well, Joe Biden's always been kind of a gaffe machine. He says the wrong thing when he's doing a speech, right? When Joe Biden was young, you can look up that he was guilty of plagiarizing. When he ran for president as a young man in his prime, he plagiarized the speech from a politician in the UK from their parliament, where he literally quoted the speech, but he changed it a couple words, you know, took out the very British words and made it more our English. And he basically gave the exact same speech, which he got caught. And when he got caught, all he said was, you know, he backed out of the president. It ended his presidential run in the past. You have to know your history, or you're going to be doomed to repeat it. So I'm just urging Americans out there, look beyond what they're telling you. Stop believing what the mainstream news is telling you. They hate your guts. They don't want you to flourish. Because you know, they don't want you to start working with me. They don't want conservatives and liberals to come together and say, you know what? We're going to take away this money from the military industrial complex. All this money that's going right now to arms sales, to Israel, to Ukraine, to all that. We're going to be like, hey, you know what? Maybe we're going to stop sending $200 billion to the Ukrainian problem over there. We're going to invest that over here so that urban cities are cleaned and parks are renewed and facilities are improved. And maybe people's housings can be refurbished and modernized and retrofitted and all that stuff. Fix the bridges, fix the roads, fix a lot of things. We could do so much. How about we do high-speed trains in the country? Could have already been done. Why isn't it done? Because they want you arguing over racism and abortion. They want you to go, wait a minute. Let's figure out, there's something that's almost impossible to figure out. When is the life inside the womb viable? When does it have its rights? So then you have everybody who's arguing on all spectrums of that argument. Oh, it's at the moment of conception. Oh, it's right up until the moment of before birth. Then, so it's all complicated. They know that there is no easy solution to that problem. That's why I actually very much support the move that happened, right? And when you say this, it's not to say it because of how you feel about the issue personally. By taking abortion back to the states, this is just something that has to be decided on a state-by-state basis. You cannot have a federal one rule for all on the issue of abortion, all right? Racism, yes, we are all Americans. So no matter what color, creed, religion, the freedom of speech and religion and who you are, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness applies to anyone under the American banner. And that's why we try, a lot of conservatives try to explain to them, the reason why the message of Black Lives Matter is not productive is because it's exclusionary. You're not what you need to understand is we're offering the American dream to you. Like, we are all Americans, right? Your life does matter. I'm going to say that. So for anyone who thinks in the Black Lives Matter movement that by anyone saying all lives matter is somehow racist, it is not. What they are saying is, look, instead of Black Lives Matter, dude, we have poor people that are Asians, poor Hispanics, poor white people of every color and creed that are lower class that need help. Everyone's life matters. The innocent Palestinians who are looking for peace and trying to live in peace, their life matters. Israelis that don't want to be violent and get involved in war, their lives matter. We have to get to the point where we realize no one's life is worth more than another's. A white life isn't worth more than a black's. A Palestinian or an Israeli life isn't worth more than the other. A Russian's life isn't worth more than a Ukrainian's. We are all human beings under the banner of God who gave us our life. All of us matter, and all of us matter equally, all right? Now, as a country, as the United States, we have to protect the freedoms that have been created here. We are blessed to be here. People have no idea how good they have it in our own country unless you've traveled abroad, unless you've seen it. I cannot go to Nicaragua. I cannot go and display my disgust and my contempt with the current government and not be expected to be thrown into jail. You have the right to do that here. I can go right up to the president himself, give him the finger, and nothing will happen to me here. God bless America. That's called the freedom of speech. You have the right to be an imbecile. Now, you don't have the right to be violent. We have our laws, and those need to be, enforced. But that's not what's happening anymore. And we're losing track of the American message. We're losing track of the American dream. And we have to get back to that. The way we get back to that is bringing people back together from both sides of the aisle. That's what this show is about, for crying out loud. Fork in the road. Instead of being so divided where the right's going this way and the left is going that way and everyone's going their own way, we're not coming together. We should be coming here into the middle, making our own path together, where we take our tax dollars, the money that they take from all of us. We are overtaxed. The libertarians have it right when they tell you that taxation is theft. They are stealing from us every single day. The hard-earned, you get taxed on the money that you make. You get taxed on the things that you buy with the money that you made. You get taxed when you die with an inheritance tax. You get taxed on a house. You fully paid your house. You fully paid your mortgage. Oh, you got property taxes. Come on, man. Like, when did we get so soft as a society that we don't tell the government, look, you got to stop taxing us, all right? They get more than enough money. And they tell you that they tax the rich and all that. The rich got to pay their fair share. The rich get taxed pretty heavily. This is nonsense. They get taxed at a higher level than any other income bracket in the country already. All of us need lower taxes. Every single one of us, from top to bottom. It leads to economic growth and prosperity. Go look at the statistics. This is not a secret. They will tell you, oh, well, that's going to decrease the revenue. You know what's going to decrease the deficit that we have? The almost $40 trillion that we're approaching? The way we do that is by budgeting. Go listen to what Rand Paul says about the budget. We literally are spending money on the most ridiculous stuff. We need to go and start slashing these things that we're doing. We need to stop studying the drug effects of lizards and animals and hamsters and God knows what else. Let's get back to some normalcy. But the reason why we can't do that is because lobbyists, special interest groups, PACs, if you go look at the PACs, political action committees, we got to stop this, man. Everyone gets mad that the corporation's this and the corporation's that. Well, who do you think is talking to your politician? You think they're listening to you, the activist on the left, or me, an activist that's more on the right? You think they're listening to us? They're laughing at us. They're laughing at you and me while we fight each other. And the reason why they're laughing is because they're over there spending their money to go talk to the people who are in charge. So when you wonder why does Mike Johnson keep bending, Speaker of the House? Why is he bending the knee to the Ukrainians? I wonder. Maybe it's because the military lobby's in his ear. Maybe it's because in powerful companies like Lockheed Martin and Boeing, they're right there and they spend all the money on both sides. When both sides come together, you should be scared right now, and that's bad. We need to get it to where when both sides come together, it's good, right? The only thing I saw where they came together was when Donald Trump assassination happened, and everyone was like, wait a minute. We got to improve security before the smellies are able to actually hit us with some of these bullets. Little do they know, there's a lot that they need to investigate there. We got to see, is there an inside job? What's really going on? There's a lot of details that are going on. And right now it just looks like the Secret Service is trying to cover up as much of their mess up as possible. So again, there are countless issues we need to talk about in our country. This election that's coming up is so important. It is so important. Why? Because if we allow the Democrats to win this election, they are projecting that there would be another 20 million people with the current policies in the next 4 years that would be able to enter our country. 20 million on top of the 20 to 30 that are already here undocumented. We're talking about a possible 40, 50 million people in our country undocumented. That is not sustainable. That will destroy the fabric of our country. And then what happens? We are seeing right now that there's civil unrest going on in Europe and in multiple countries. This isn't about race. This isn't about Muslims. There are great Muslims that follow their religion the way it's supposed to be followed, just like there are great Christians that do the same thing. There are extremist Muslims that are extremely violent, and their Sharia law and things like that are absolutely scary and abhorrent and should be illegal. Well, there are also, look, I'm Catholic, but there are extremist Catholics, more in the past, I would say. But of course, nobody is a saint, right? There's extreme Judaism, Hindus, you name it. Everybody has their extremists. But most of the population, most of the people in our country are good people. We are just busy. We're out there working. We're out there trying to feed our kids, trying to protect our families. Most of them are not making noise to the politicians. The people who are making noise to the politicians are the political action committees, are the lobbyists, are all these people. We have to take power back so that anyone who talks like the way I am right now is considered a threat because they're trying to wake you up. I'm trying to tell you, stop fighting with each other and realize they're stealing from us. They're stealing from me and you. They are stealing from all of us. They're taking our tax money. Why is our tax money not going back to us, right? It makes no sense. And they will find new and creative ways to tax you. And by the way, go do some research on what inflation is. Whenever you hear them say that, oh, inflation's down to 2.9%, right? Yes, this is a year over year thing. And the Fed itself will tell you that it has to be under 2% just to be sustainable. But 2.9% means that we are still inflating at a 2.9% rate compared to last year. That is a compound. It adds on top of each other. 2.9 plus 4% plus 5%. We were as high as 9% at one point, which again, Biden did not inherit. You can go back and look when the inflation started. Now, there were things in the Donald Trump presidency from before and Congress, mostly because of COVID, where they printed a bunch of money. That was the first time they printed it, and it was under the Trump administration. It was a mistake then, and it's a mistake now. They did 2 more printings, large ones, and total, all of this printing was the largest redistribution of wealth in our history. Literally more money was printed in those few years than all of history combined. People, and then they wonder, why are the prices so high right now? Why does milk cost so much? Why does gas cost so much? Why does everything cost so much? That is why they printed a historical amount of money and they gave you a little taste. They said, here you go, Smelly. Here's a little bit of money for you, okay? Shut your mouth. And now we're gonna go and just fatten our pockets like into a level that you've never seen. So corruption is everywhere. No politician should be loved or trusted. And that includes Donald Trump. That includes Kamala Harris. No one is the savior here. You know what I mean? Politicians are tools, plain and simple. They are tools to do the will of the people. But they can make it where the people are too busy fighting with each other. Therefore, they can do whatever they want. You're not even going to be able to see what it is that they're doing. So I'm going to share one other thing for you. Lately, Kamala Harris at one of her rallies, she started saying that the tax, no more tax on tips is a good idea. Well, I want you to go back because it happened in 2022. This headline from Dan Bongino explains it all as well. She was the one who did the tie-breaking vote when they did the Inflation Reduction Act that included hiring more IRS agents to go after the hospitality industry to tax your tips, right? So, I mean, is that the person you're going to trust? Are you going to trust the person that literally signed the bill who was the deciding vote? She was the deciding vote. It came down to 50-50 in the Senate. Therefore, the vice president has to make a deciding vote. She announced it all proudly. I'm going to go with the yays and we're going to sign this bill. Now, all of a sudden, because it is a very popular thing that Donald Trump said, I mean, if she came out in a long-term interview and she just admitted, I would give her more credit if she said, you know what? Donald Trump had a good idea, and so we're going to go ahead and use that idea as well. It would be a better sign. It would have been refreshing had Mayorkas and Biden said, you know what, Trump did some good things at the border, and we're going to build on that and do it our way to keep the border safe and secure. Barack Obama believed in a secure border. Bill Clinton believed in a secure border. George Bush, literally every single president that we've had, not named Joe Biden, believed in a secure border. And now here we are. Kamala Harris, I showed you the video in my last episode about right there where he appointed her in charge of the migration crisis. They called it that in order to curb the migration crisis and address this, where Kamala is going to get down to the root cause of migration. The root cause of migration was you invited everybody to come to the United States. Everybody wants to come here. It's not easy, by the way. When you come here, it's not like everything's easy. It's not the most glamorous life. But they know that the opportunity will be there for their next generations, for their bloodlines and so forth. But again, I'll do a video on immigration to get more into this, right? I'm a son of immigrants. We love immigrants. Immigrants are what make this country strong. That is true. But if you don't control who comes in, how do you know which ones you're letting in? Right? We should let in all the, like it says on the Statue of Liberty, and like it said, our spirit here, give me your weak, give me your poor. Absolutely. We should be taking in people who are fleeing oppression. I know because in 2018 in Nicaragua, there was heavy oppression there, and people needed to come here for seeking asylum because it was bad. They were murdering people. And that goes on in Venezuela and Cuba and all these countries. But anyone who comes from those countries, from Venezuela, from Cuba, from Nicaragua, and so forth, will tell you, be careful with leftist ideas that lean towards socialism and communism. They are extremely dangerous. They will destroy your country, all right? Go look at what's going on in Argentina because there's a massive political experiment going on right there with Javier Milei. Javier Milei is a libertarian economic. He has a background in economics. He immediately slashed most of the federal government because there was just all these bureaucracies and all this wasteful spending that was going on. And the inflation rate was literally, people were losing their money was, I believe it was 10% a month where they were losing value. So if I have $100, a month from now it's worth 90, a month from then it's worth 80, a month from there, now my $100 is worth $70. That was the rate of inflation in Argentina. They literally had stacks, right? Because it's hyperinflation. So what did he do? Drastic measures. We are heading in this direction if we don't get it under control. Right now, everyone's feeling a little bit better, a little bit more snug. They're like, hey, we're at 2.9%, but we're still not where we're supposed to be. Not only that, but we actually have to get below the 2% mark and reverse the trend so that we can start lowering prices. It's not corporations price gouging you. That is a myth. These people have lied to you in the past. Why are you going to believe them now? They lied to you about COVID. I mean, that is clear. Look at all the data now. Ivermectin, it's horse dewormer. No, obviously it isn't, because now the CDC says, oh, ivermectin is an effective treatment to be used. It's not a cure for COVID, but it has been shown to be an effective treatment. Do you remember how much of a big deal they made because Joe Rogan's? Do you know why they made a big deal? Ask yourself, because you know what? It always comes down to the answer: money. Money. Who's the largest lobbyist to your politician that you're supporting? Do you think they're going to listen to you, or they're going to listen to Pfizer? Pharmaceutical companies. The funniest thing, and Joe Biden never said in his 4 years in office, the most ridiculous, outlandish thing that I will never forget he said was when he proudly stood in front of a crowd and he said, "We beat pharma this year. We beat pharma, big pharma." What did you beat, man? All right? Nonsense. And he was talking about insulin and diabetes and whatnot. Bro, they empowered big pharma to a level that's literally, Pfizer's never had bigger profits. How can we have the US taxpayer develop the vaccine, Operation Warp Speed? We paid for the vaccine with our tax dollars. Pfizer kept all the profits? How does none of that money go back into the tax fund? How does that money not go back to the people? Because our lobbyists are corrupt. They don't care. They hate you. Remember that. They hate your guts. We are the smellies. Go take a shower. They don't care about you. They don't care about us. Go back to fighting over racism and abortion. Go on, smellies. Go on. Don't worry about the money. Don't look over here. No, we're not going to show you. In 75 years, we're going to show you the documentation of what we found in the test trials for the COVID vaccine. We're not going to reveal that to you now. Just, right before you die and your great grandkids have taken over, we're still waiting on the JFK files. What does that tell you? Stop trusting your government, man. It's ridiculous. Like, if you can't see that, you are just willingly being compliant. You just want to hand over your rights. And that's what's leading to all the problems that we have. We need to start waking up. The priorities in this country are so backwards. I know everyone has to work. Everyone has to go live their lives. And politics get boring. I get that. I'm a crazy person who will sit there and watch a 3-hour congressional hearing to hear, what exactly was said. I don't go and hear what the news tells me happened in the hearing, because sometimes I watch a lot of right-wing media, but they won't tell you when the Democrats ask some good questions. Sometimes they do ask some great questions, because there are a few Democrats that are actually trying to be more centrist and do want to get to the problem. I can't remember his name right now, but I'm thinking of the committee with Rand Paul and the guy with glasses. I'll have to look that up later. Him and Rand, they got a good relationship as the ranking members of that committee. And you can see where he's like, I'm going to work with you to get to the bottom of this. And that's with the whole Fauci thing, right? So there's corruption everywhere. And how do you fight the corruption? Because then people say, well, Paul, what's the answer? What do? We have no power. Well, we have to put people in power that are going to relinquish power. And if you don't hold them accountable to that, then you elect someone else that says they're going to relinquish power. It's hard to do. I see a few people up there. I think Chip Roy, I think Matt Gaetz, as much as you either like them or don't, they have proposed we need term limits for Congress. We need, we can't have people who've been in Congress for 50 years. We just can't. The level of corruption happens that you see with the Nancy Pelosi's and Mitch McConnell's. They're both equally bad. I don't care what side you are. I don't think Mitch McConnell's better than Nancy Pelosi just because he has the Republican banner. It's not that way. These people have old school corruption money. They've been taking bribes for a long time. Joe Biden is the best example of this. This man has never been in the private sector in his entire life. He has been a political figure. All he knows how to do is get in front of cameras and lie to your face. That's all he knows how to do. It's what he's done his entire life. It's just insane that we continue to not try to be better. If until the public gets better, we get what we deserve. Most of the guys I know can tell you who the first, second, and third string are of their favorite NFL team, right? I used to be that. I'm not going to say which team, right? But I don't want to get too divided with it. We don't want to get off track here. But I have my favorite football team, right? And I knew who the first, second, third stringers were. I knew who the first, second, third stringers were of everybody in our division, okay? But who's running for mayor? Who's running for state senator? Who's running for county clerk or treasurer or a lot of the other positions in our local politics? I don't know. There's no coverage of this. There's no priority to tell you. You ever wonder why they don't really give you a lot of information about your local politicians, or it's extremely hard to find out? In fact, when you go and vote, the pamphlet they give you might just say what party they are. I don't know if this guy, sometimes when I go vote for a Republican and I'm voting and I'm like, for all I know, this guy's a dirtbag, or this woman. I don't know really. I'm just giving the benefit of the doubt. Vote D, right? There's all those Democrats. Vote blue, no matter who. And the same thing though for Republicans. There are rhinos, that are just people who aren't serious people, who they will trick you, but we don't know anything about them. We don't have profiles. Nobody cares, right? You know what I'm saying? A lot of these priorities have to be fixed. It's because of these same symptoms that, yes, there's a lot of money in sports. I would just encourage you to remember, this has been going on since the Roman era, when they had gladiators in the ring. Let's entertain the masses by having gladiators and people bash each other violently, right? But you're not focused on who's running your government, okay? We got the same thing going on now. There are nurses, there are policemen, there are firemen, there are construction workers, there are people that work in unions, there are people who are out there literally building your roads and trying to make sure that the country keeps running. And they don't get paid anywhere near the amount as someone that can go and play a child's game at the highest level, who can go and play basketball at the highest level, or football, or soccer, and soccer is the most popular sport in the world. So the soccer thing is really globally, the corruption that goes there. FIFA, who's in charge of the soccer around the world, is one of the most corrupt organizations there are. So that's what I'm trying to tell you, man. Like, we're talking about billions of dollars being funneled. Like, you can get into the specifics of sports. I can make the argument, obviously, well, you don't want all the money going to ownership and whatnot. And the money is there because we all tune in. But maybe as a society, we just, and this is obviously idealistic, wishful thinking, but as a society, we have to start realizing what's our priority and what is it that we really want for this country. And in order to do that, you have to go and educate yourself a little bit. It's disgusting how many people don't even know, like, what year this country, the Declaration of Independence was signed, or when we had a civil war, or, what the name of the first president was. You see these videos online, how dumb and ignorant our public is. And that's not good. That's not a good thing. We have to make it where talking about politics is a little bit more entertaining, is a little bit more catchy, just to the point where we at least have a basic education to uplift everybody, where we start fighting back as a public, right? Democracy only works if the people educate themselves enough to where the politicians work for you. They work for us. They're not scared of us. They're not scared of us. They were scared for us a little bit during the Tea Party, because they were like, wait, is everyone coming together real quick against us? And then they were like, wait, smellies. Let's start talking about racism in the New York Times and the Washington Post and all these publications, and that way everybody starts talking about racism again. That started in 2011, which was a little bit after the whole Ron Paul movement. I don't think that's a coincidence. Maybe I'm wrong. That's just my thought process, but wake up, man. We gotta wake up as a country. Cutesy time is over. We can't mess around. This election is just too important, and I really don't care about any other issue, where you stand on it. We won't even have a country where we can argue over those issues if we don't close and secure the border. And then once the border is closed and secure, we fix the immigration system so that those people who've been waiting 10 plus years, they have to get some avenue where they can pay their fees, pay their fines. They've been paying taxes already, most of them. And let's integrate them because those people are here. But the people that have come in the last 5 years, I would just say, if I'm Donald Trump, all the people that came in during, if you've only been here since the Joe Biden era, you are a candidate for deportation. Simple. You came in during a time when the doors were wide open. You have not been here long enough. And that's just, we have to draw the line somewhere. I think that's the line that needs to be drawn. If you came in during the Joe Biden administration, you're out. It's that simple. You give everyone a little bit of time to say you can leave willingly, you can turn yourself in to be helped out, or we're gonna find you and we're gonna kick you out of the country. That's gonna have to happen if we're gonna return to normalcy. I don't want that to happen. That is not a crisis that anybody wishes for, but you're gonna have to blame the Joe Biden administration for putting us in that situation. It's gonna have to be cleaned up. But I do think that if you've been here from before that, it should be looked on carefully. If you've had children here that are grown up, and if you've been here and you've been paying taxes, you've been working in our system, clearly we have to create some sort of avenue for you to be able to integrate properly into our country, because we are a land of immigrants. And those people, whether you like it or not, say they beat the system or whatnot, but you know what? We do have to be humane at some point. It's not like we're trying to be inhumane about it, but we have to draw lines, and you can't even start reforming that, and you can't start fixing USCIS unless the border is secure. So let's focus on that. I encourage you, if you're voting, I'm going to keep spreading this message until election day. If we don't have a border, we don't have a country. The Democrats are clearly not serious about fixing the border. Every time you hear Kamala Harris says, I'm going to fix immigration, well, why aren't you doing that now? You are in power. You are the vice president. You are in control right now. Joe Biden is literally a vessel. He's the Weekend at Bernie's character that they're pulling on a string. That's Joe Biden. So Kamala, if you're really a leader, show it and call out Joe Biden. Separate yourself from this ridiculous policies and say, you know what? I don't agree with Joe on immigration. We need to get tougher on it. I mean, you literally could just go back to Barack Obama era politics and that will be welcome. The nation will be better for it. You will all of a sudden get independence. God forbid you actually listen to me, because that's good advice. You'll get more independence to be like, wait, Kamala looks like she's actually serious about the border. Okay, but she's not. She's not. She's been in charge of the border. She's ignored it. She has no idea how to fix it, which is clear, or else we would have been in the process of fixing it. It's really quite simple. That's my take on this. If you disagree, feel welcome to disagree. Share with me why you disagree. If you agree, right on, supportive. Join the community. Let's build something here. I don't want to, I want liberals to be able to come here. I want to create a space where we can all talk to each other. I tried this the other day on Twitter. It was not easy. I was trying to have a civil discussion and I got interrupted and quieted quite a bit. I will say that the energy with the liberals seems quite angry these days. And I find conservatives at least more willing to speak, hear you out, let's say. They may not agree with you, but at least they'll hear you out. They're not just going to be like, you're muted. But that's another subject. So once again, I want to thank you again for tuning in, especially if you've been here this long. Hey, like and subscribe, right? Join the group. Let's build something beautiful here at Fork in the Road. And just remember, man, when life and politics and everybody's telling you, hey, you want to go right or left? Just forge ahead, create your own path.